Hey Jess, did you know that LEGO released a set of the entire Disney castle?
Holy cow. We'll have to keep that in mind for the future.
The future?
Yeah, for when you already bought it, didn't you?
It arrives on Tuesday. Welcome to Eat a Fix, the podcast about a couple hyperfixating on obscure pop culture. I'm your co-host, Paul Unger.
And I'm your co-host, Jess Unger.
And today we're talking about something that's near and dear, well, to my heart since childhood, actually. And now I've actually been able to introduce our child to it, which has been this fun experience, but it's made me reevaluate my whole story with it. But LEGO.
Yay! I have been severely enabling you.
Yeah. We have picked up far too much LEGO, and now that we have adult money and can do adult things, I've just been wanting to pick up all the sets, and they have like this new Star Wars diorama set, and I've seen how much it costs and how much it would be for the whole set, and I still really want it.
And that's understandable. And I like the dynamic that we have with it, because I personally do not have the patience to go through that and put all those sets together, but I like looking at the finished product. So I will often be like, hey, do you like this ship in a bottle? Do you consider, like, oh, hey, a probe droid. Do you have an interest in possibly building that so we can display it and I can also look at it? Thank you.
Yeah, you even let me set up a LEGO bouquet of flowers that we've been having in the living room for so long.
That wasn't let you. That was, hey, if you buy me this and build it for me, it'll be the last bouquet of flowers you will ever need to buy me.
But then they have like new flowers that you can put in. I am getting distracted.
That's the point.
Yeah. Legos were already in my household when I came around. My brother was already into Legos. Mm-hmm. And it was something that out of all the different toys, like I've played with action figures, all that sort of stuff, but like I latched on to those hard when I was a kid.
What was it about them?
I think it's the same reason why I kind of latch on to sandbox games now. But I think it's that idea of having something in my head and being able to build it and kind of contextualize a thought with it.
Okay.
Because I was thinking about this the other day of this when GIFs became available to use on Messenger.
Yep.
I felt a lot more confident in being able to talk with people in the way that there was memes and GIFs that I could send that succinctly summed up that experience that I wanted to convey.
Yep.
And I will not lie, there were entire conversations that I had for weeks that were just GIF responses because that was the easiest way for me to convey thoughts. And when it comes to Legos, being able to actually build ideas that I had in my head made it so much easier because drawing it out, there's that like trial and error, or I have the thought in my head and I can't convey it into the way I want it to be. You have to practice, you have to think about things. Mm-hmm. But Lego has a system, as they have it on the Netflix special, that there's a system of how all the blocks work. There's a way that they all combine together. And you can just make what you want within that sort of ecosystem.
Yes.
And I know for me, I used to have these ideas of like spaceships or different sort of characters and things like that. And I could build them with that idea in mind. Or you can take a medieval set and then make it in space. You can do all sorts of fun stuff. And I know actually a friend of ours who does the, I am going to butcher the title of the podcast, but I'm actually going to look this up because I am uncertain about it. Our friend Adam Mardero, who is the co-host on the Neurodivergent Polyamorist, as well as the author of Uncommon Sense, actually still does this to this day, as far as like he has written sci-fi stories, and in order to kind of help contextualize it and visualize it, he builds the vehicles out of Legos.
Extraordinary.
So he knows what it's going to look like. And I remember loving getting sets, and I'd build the set and I'd do the exact same thing that our daughter does, which now I get an idea as to why my parents got so upset with this. Of I would build the set, I'd follow the instructions, I'd build the set and be very meticulous about it.
Yes.
And then within that same day, I would take that entire set apart and build other stuff and mix it in with all the other Lego I had.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah, and I remember we got her this Disney set, and she built it, and we put it together, and she was so happy with it. And then she came out with like these different things that she had built out of this little set. And that my first thought was like, we just spent all this time. And then followed by, you're doing the exact same thing I do, and I love you for it. Like now I have those sets that are like the Lego ideas, the Lego creator sets.
Yep.
That are like the artisanal sets.
Those are the ones I like getting you.
Yeah. Like the architecture one or the idea sets.
Yeah.
Where I build them and then those are like...
You leave them alone.
Yeah, they're just put up on the shelf.
Yeah.
And there may come a time where I'm like, I want to build something and that dino rib is exactly what I need, and I'm sorry, that's what's going to happen. Or building something going like, okay, well, the Louvre needs to lose the little pyramid because I need this set of pieces. I can see that happening, but I've maintained a certain level of restraint at this point.
I appreciate that. Because those are the ones that I enjoy looking at.
But
the dino rib, I don't mind so much.
Yeah. I think it's that idea that it was a sandbox that I was able to play around with. And I don't know, looking at it now, it makes sense as far as like something I can lose myself into and just build something and then erase it. And just, there was no hang-ups on the creation of it. I didn't have to show it off at the end. It was just something for me that I could do.
Yeah.
And it's something I realized that we actually got the Lego bonsai tree. That was something I was going to set up at my office.
Yep.
Because I wanted something for my office, but I do not get one iota of natural sunlight in there. And you've already crocheted me this awesome cactus that I have on my desk. My coworkers are incredibly curious about every time they pass by. But the notion of actually having a real plant there feels like that's just like slowly killing something, that would be unfair.
True.
So we got this bonsai tree, and setting that up and building that and just sitting, I think I was watching the Clone Wars.
Yep.
And doing that. And I just realized how much of that, I still get that feeling of when I was a kid and building something. Like I was just in the moment doing that. I wasn't worried about anything else. I was watching my show. I was building that and not a care in the world beyond that. And that's nice. And I don't know. Sometimes like time blindness is a plague. And I will admit that before I was medicated, I would lose track of hours of, hey, I have a whole day and all I need to do is just wash these dishes. And then 5 hours later, I haven't done a single thing with my day. Or I need to send out these letters by Friday. And 3 weeks later, I'm still sitting with those letters in my car. And just, I also felt like a horrible person while I was doing that. And now that happens far less, especially now when I'm like, this is a time sensitive matter and I need Jess to handle it. So that's been nice of like, hey, we need to pay this bill. Please, can you do that?
Yes. And I've taken over that matter. Just anything financial.
Yeah.
That's a me thing. I pay the bills, you make the phone calls, that I don't want to make.
It's a good system that's worked so far.
I agree.
But there's sometimes when getting lost in that build of like, I didn't think about the time. I think I stayed up from, like, I started building that finally once the kids had gone to bed at 9 o'clock at night.
Roughly.
And I think I was building that until I finally finished it, packed it up and got it ready to bring to work. And that was at
10:30. Not very long.
Yeah.
Because I was still awake.
Yeah. Just, I don't know. That time just flew by. Wasn't like a blur. Like, it wasn't one of those things where I felt jarred or upset, but it was just that nice little, I did something. I was just lost in that moment and time ceased. I didn't need to worry about it.
Oh, exactly. But it's also nice. I enjoy getting you those. One, because it is a surefire bet of a gift you're going to love.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, for me, someone who has huge anxiety about getting people gifts, a giant relief.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I enjoy watching you build them. I enjoy watching you lose yourself because your inner child comes out. And it's the sweetest and the cutest moment. I love witnessing it every time because every few minutes you'll go, I love this. I'm having so much fun. This is so cool. Thank you so much. I love it. Thank you. This is so fun. I really enjoy seeing you in those moments.
I really enjoy experiencing those moments. So thank you.
You bet.
One thing that I've noticed, because we got some Lego sets recently.
Many.
And one of them was a non-Lego Lego set. So the one thing that I noticed was the amount of pieces to get a certain thing done that I never appreciate how
concise.
How much that Lego packages, like the Lego sets, have gotten down to an art form from like the old school. I'm just trying to think of like, I remember having like the Space Miner set and like actually having a bunch of like 2x2, 4x4 blocks that I had to like put into this whole section that I built.
Oh.
And at the time, you didn't think anything of it. But now I built the Boba Fett helmet. And that was like, there's a lot of pieces, but it all came together to look very specific. Mm-hmm. And I'm building this other set with our daughter. And like, I'm going and putting on these really tedious little pieces when she gets like really frustrated with them. Yeah. And I'm just like, this would have been like 8 less pieces if this was like the official, like
yeah. That's what you get.
Yeah. And now going through, like the algorithm on TikTok got me precise because they started filling up my feed with just Lego master builders and like people working at Lego stores. And I didn't realize how much internalized Lego history I had sort of memorized, because I would get the Lego magazine after you like sign up and you get like the little postcard in the box and you send it off, and then you just get Lego magazines until they're like, you've probably aged out of this. And then you send it in again.
Now our daughter gets it.
Yeah. So I would go, and they used to have like the comics and like they'd have the stories, because they didn't have a bunch of the licensed stuff that they have now. Like now they have Batman and they have the Marvel stuff and they have Harry Potter and everything. Mm-hmm. But beforehand, they made their own stuff based off of kind of what was popular at that time.
Yep.
So while mummies were a big thing, we got the Johnny Thunder archaeologist, who is sort of like a knockoff Indiana Jones. And they had these comics that ran in there about all of his adventures. And I remember reading those and loving them. Like, you wanted to get each issue, like each magazine, just to see what new adventures he was getting up to. And then they had, with the Titanic and the underwater exploration, they had these like underwater sea labs, and like then there was like a good guys and bad guys, and they had battles underwater. And it was, again, those things that you really got interested in. Now with Ninjago and all that, I don't pay as much attention to all that.
Yeah.
I remember the last hurrah of like, oh, like I am so into this, and I still have them to this day because one magazine I got came with an actual full comic book in there.
Ooh.
And that was the first issue of the Bionicle comic book.
Okay.
And I remember just getting all up in the Bionicle lore because there was this whole world in there. And for the longest time, that was just like, not as hardcore as some people. I've been on the subreddits. I've seen people on the internet. I am not that hardcore. But I was pretty obsessed with it for a little while. That there was movies, video games, and not only that, like collectible characters and like rare drops in different cases. So you were trying to find this golden mask. Oh. And I know I'm going to butcher any of the names that I try and say, so I'm not even going to try it.
And that makes sense. And while my brother was also super into Bionicle when we were young, I know nothing. I sort of remember what they looked like. I know there was a TV show. I got him a couple for his birthday a few times. I don't know. That's the extent of my knowledge.
See, and I think I followed them up until I remember getting this one set, and it literally broke down into like 9 different pieces, and that was it.
Yeah, they weren't real.
Well, no, the first ones were, but like this last one was just like, it wasn't made up of all the different pieces. It was like
chunks. Yeah,
like big chunks that were like heavily formed already.
Oh.
And I remember that being like the turning point of like, this isn't a build. It stopped being a build that turned into an action figure. It's just like, it was an action figure I needed to assemble. That was, that weird line had been crossed. I'm like, I'm done with this. And it still went on for a little bit longer. And now we get the heavily licensed stuff. Mm-hmm. I kind of miss the weird, janky ideas that Lego came out with. Now they have like their cityscapes and like different buildings and all that.
Yep.
But like I do really miss those weird IP like shots in the dark that they did, where it's just like, are we doing mining on the on the moon? Yep, we're making a whole storyline around that.
They did like, I remember commercials and being impressed with like a haunted something. It was either like a cave. I don't think it was a haunted house. Anyway, it involved ghost minifigs that glowed in the dark.
And I can tell you, I know exactly where that ghost is.
in your...
in the Legos,
in
and
house.
What set that came from.
Oh my god.
So, yeah, again, that weird, janky, I wouldn't, without this conversation, I know I would flub just trying to, like, think about that. But, like, when I'm in that space, it's insane the amount of that knowledge I consumed and still remember.
Hey, man, when you like something, you like something. When you deep dive, you deep dive.
Yeah.
So.
And, like, now I wasn't able to get into, like, Legos are pretty cost prohibitive to get some of the bigger sets.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
So I remember, like, once Minecraft launched, I remember spending a lot of time in there and, like, trying to catch that dragon of getting the dopamine.
Yep. The dopamine dragon.
Yeah, the dopamine dragon. His name is Dave.
Dave the dopamine. Okay. Now I need to make one.
But the point is, I had tried kind of filling up that creative, like, hands-on void with some open world games, but now getting back into that Lego creation, it's been fun, and also just like making something for the sake of making something. Not everything needs to have a purpose.
No, but the sense of accomplishment is addictive.
It is.
It's a big reason why I craft as well.
So I know for me, it's safe to say that Legos has been taking up my headspace lately, and I am now realizing that, again, with poor financial choices, we own way too many Lego games, and I need to play some of them before I purchase another one, because the Skywalker collection of Lego Star Wars came out.
Oh, fun.
And it looks so good. But I will show some restraint, and we'll see how the month goes. But what have you been into lately?
Well, I'll start with a little bit of context. So I'm running out of fluff, polyfill, for those of you who make stuffies and what have you. So I'm running out of stuffing, for lack of a better word. So my hands are still itchy, like I still need to do something with them. So I still want to crochet, and I don't make garments a lot, and I have a hard time finding inspiration for that. So I actually found it through a really unlikely YouTube channel. It's called Alt Knots. Knots like knotting string, yarn, whatever. And it is this wonderful Minnesotan woman who is goth as all get out, fiery red hair, pale skin, dark black eye makeup and lipstick, about as goth as you can get. But she is so sweet, and not a foul word leaves her face. And it's just, it does not look like something you can watch with your children in the room, but it is.
Yeah, actually, you had there was a video of just her quietly crocheting while there's like some soft music playing.
Yeah.
And I came in and you were watching that. The kids were just completely zenned out, and I didn't know what was going on.
So yeah, she does those, where it's like a half hour to an hour where she'll just sit and like it's a crochet with me with some chill music. She does lives very frequently where you crochet along with her. She'll provide a pattern. Usually it's a cardigan, or like a hat. She also does a lot of fingerless gloves. But she'll provide a pattern, and she'll do lives and like dedicate an hour or 2 or 3 to just going along that pattern and going through all the rows and everything and kind of explaining what's going on. She does short little YouTube tutorials. She does yarn hauls and hook hauls, and she's, I don't know, she's just goth and so pleasant. And she kind of gave me a little bit of inspiration. So I'm making a very fall themed with some spooky green in it cardigan myself now. So that's what I've been doing.
We'll have to show that off once it's done.
Yes, it's going to be huge. It's going to be very oversized, but once washed, it will be comfy. I'm excited.
Now, I know that that's going to about wrap it up for this episode. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to leave a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to tell people about this show. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, but we aren't as active. Those require a lot of work, and sometimes it's just... Twitter is exhausting.
So is Facebook. And honestly, we have 2 young kids, so we can only do so much.
Yeah.
There are only so many spoons in the drawer.
But if you've enjoyed the show, check us out there. Tell your friends about us, because that's the only way that we can grow as a show. And for next time, we will be returning back to the inescapable king as we go back to one of my favorite westerns that also happens to star Elvis, Charo.
Yes, and it happens to also be, I think it's his only one that has like almost nudity.
Spicy.
It is.
But it doesn't include Charo in it, which is very confusing for me.
Until I looked it up, and then I understood a little more but also a little less because Charos don't appear in the movie. It's poorly named, but it's very good.
But until next time, like what you like.
No matter what the mean kids say.
Bye.
Bye. Big thank you to Ethel and the Androids for the use of their song Used to Know You for the intro and the outro. You can find the link to their SoundCloud in the show description, as well as all our links to our social media. And thanks for tuning in and listening to our podcast. If you like the show, be sure to review and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice.